I'm going to give you a litmus test for a professional photographer versus the gear snob. People are like, the bigger the better. And this really is true, okay? You're not even going to deny me on what I'm about to say. The people that have owned lots of cameras, and you know, they've got some DX cameras sitting around and they got some full frame cameras sitting around. When they hear people pissing about how superior full frame is to DX, they roll their eyes and tell you to go stick it somewhere. Well, not all of them would say that, but they're thinking that. They're like, so what? I don't give a crap. I've got a lot of full frame cameras, I've got a lot of DX cameras, and there are advantages to DX, there are advantages to full frame. The advantages are a lot less than they used to be. They weren't that tremendous to begin with, but now they're a lot less. A lot less. And the people that have owned tons of both, when they hear people saying, well, this is what the people that don't really know what they're talking about, this is what you or they say. Well, that's a full frame cam. You're comparing a full frame to a crop. You know, don't give a shit. You know, it's like, which would you rather have? A kind of like bad specification full frame camera, or a really hot specification, you know, bottomless buffer DX camera? The case will be, depending on the type of shooting you're doing, obviously this is a very case-dependent wildlife nature photography. Now, in general, let's say in general, you're just going to say, no specific photography, just in general. The person's going to say, I'll take the superior spec DX camera. That's what the professional will say. The people that have used tons of DX cameras and tons of FX cameras, and in most cases own several full-frame cameras and own several DX cameras, they're going to just, you know, like pick their nose when you tell them, well, that's a DX camera. You're like, so, kiss my ass, you know, kiss it. It's not me talking to you. I mean, that's what they're thinking. And that really is the truth. Let's get honest here, okay? Let's really get honest. Here's an advantage to full frame. One example, okay? 85mm 1.8. Standard portrait lens. Let's just take the 85 at 1.8, okay? The advantage we have here is to get that same bokeh, we have to, and this is why Fuji's 56mm is a super fast f1.2. To get the exact same bokeh, and I've done tests of this in a prior video, you have to use a 56mm at f1.4. Okay. To get the same, just the depth of field only, 85 at 1.8, you have to use a 56 at 1.4. But they don't have the same compression, because while the crop factor on the 56 is like an 85mm, basically, the compression is not the same. You know what lens compression is? Just look up lens compression. If you frame the subject the same in your sensor, the compression will be different. I mean, as you go from wide angle to telephoto, this is what happens to the face. Wide angle, telephoto. And then people want to argue with me that that's merely perspective. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't get the point. If you frame the person the same, the compression is different. So there's an advantage of full frame. Used to be the case that it was radically different. No, not radically. Better dynamic range on shadow detail due to larger pixel pitch and or better infrastructure of the sensor as regarding specifically the micro lens design, specifically the better pixel pitch. Not really the case anymore, because a camera, each and every damn camera, is not a sensor, it is an image processor. Image processor. This is why a really tiny pixel pitch modern camera is performing way better than super gigantic photo sites on like the Nikon D3 from 8 years ago. Nikon D3 has some huge old owl eyes on it. Okay? But the tiny little beady eyes on, say, the Fuji X-T1 or the Nikon D500, they are way better than the gigantic owl eyes on the Nikon D3, as an example. Because a camera is not a sensor. It is an image processor. The 80 converters and the processors and the SNR firmware has gotten radically better, and therefore the difference between full frame and DX have gone from like this to like this. Literally, they've gone from like this to this. Literally. Okay, so that advantage really ain't an advantage anymore. It still is, but not really. DX advantages. If you got all the money in the world and you're driving in a Bentley and you have a gold-plated cod piece for an underwear and money is no concern of yours and you are a wildlife photographer, you are shooting 9 times out of 10, if not more, a DX crop sensor camera. Why? Oh, why would you use a DX for that? Because there's more translational information per square millimeter. See, nature wildlife photographers, when they are taking a picture of the speckle-breasted woodpecker at 1,000 yards with that 600 millimeter f4, which weighs like a bazillion tons and is out to here and is bigger than John Holmes's hot dog. They crop the hell out of that shot. It's like, oh, look, there's the rare speckle-breasted woodpecker. Click. That's when a full frame is not desirable. That's when you want to use a full frame lens on a tight pixel picture. There's a huge advantage of DX crop sensor. Like if you want to crop in really tight at your naked neighbor across the street, she's undressing and anyway, that's the advantage of DX. See? So each one has its own advantages. As far as the dynamic range and shadows, they've gone from this to like this. There still is a difference, but was like this, no like this. So it is the case, and this is undeniable. No matter how much you piss or bitch with me about it, it's undeniable that the people out there that own both and or have used plenty of both, they have no issue picking up a DX crop sensor camera and doing pro work with it. I don't give a damn what you say, it's the fact. I've spelled out the differences, the advantages of full frame, especially lens compression, and the fact that you have to have a wider, a more open aperture for an equivalent depth of field rendering on the DX crop sensor. So that is an issue. You can produce, you know, my buddy, he's a local buddy. He shoots for, I can't say it's a government agency, but he was showing me these huge posters hanging from the ceiling of a government office. I can't say what they are. But he took those pictures with the Fuji X Pro 2, which is a DX crop sensor. Those banners are like 10 feet tall and like 4 feet wide. And he was telling me, he was laughing at all these idiots who are like, well, that's a DX crop sensor camera. You know, he's just, those banners look beautiful. I mean, those banners are huge. Huge. I've seen gigantic posters. Not like wall posters. I mean, big ass posters. It's like 8 foot by about 9 foot. Those are printed off like Fuji crop sensor cameras or even Nikon crop. So don't give me this BS of like, well, that's a full frame camera. You know, well, I don't know what you're printing. I mean, do most of your wedding photography jobs require you to print larger than 20 by 30? I mean, how many requests do you get for wall size prints? It's like, I want a print that's like 10 feet tall by 20 feet wide. So even the DX, it depends on the viewing distance, of course. But even a DX crop sensor can do that, okay? You know, like the Nikon D3 was a 12 megapixel camera, full frame. The newest generation of DX crop sensors are all kind of like right near 24 megapixel, average about 24. And if doing my math correctly, that is twice as many megapixels as the full frame Nikon D3. Yeah, with much better image processing. Yeah, let me do the math there. Twice the megapixels and way better image processing than the Nikon D3. Now tell me again your crazy ass theory about why full frame is, oh, it's so much better. Full frame. When I get a, this is what people do. They're like, I got a DX camera now, but when I get a full frame, they're going to go, oh, my photography is going to get so much better. And I'm like, no, you're deluded. It's not. It's just not. It's not going to. Bye.